So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories, a series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what really drives them forward. And today, delighted that we have with us Jan Richardson-Wilde, who's the CEO of Occupational Awards Limited. So Jan, welcome on board today, and I really appreciate if you could maybe introduce yourself and Occupational Awards and how you help people.
Thanks, Chris. Well, thank you very much for asking me to do this. Occupational Awards Limited is a not-for-profit organisation and is part of the National Skills Academy for Food and Drink. We're very much an industry-focused awarding and endpoint assessment organisation. And that means that we provide a wide range of qualifications, products, and multi-sector endpoint assessment for our employers and all our customers. This first started off focusing on the food and drink industry and branched out in food and drink manufacturing, furniture, retail, the creative industries. We do a lot of improvement standards and leadership and management, and very much apprenticeship endpoint assessment that's created by true industry experts. We're now in the top 10 of apprenticeship endpoint assessment organisations because we're approved for 32 standards, which means we offer not just the qualifications that sit with them, but the endpoint assessment across all of those standards. We work with over 200 food and drink employers across the country, people such as Nestle, Mars, Bakkavor, Coca-Cola, Travis Perkins, you know, some really big organisations. And, you know, we started only 5-6 years ago, but we're growing year on year and now work with over 200 colleges and training providers as well.
Wowzers, that's a lot to have done in 5 years. So
yes. Obviously part of that is due to our links with our parent company, the National Skills Academy for Food and Drink.
Brilliant. Well, look, if we tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Well, growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher or a trainer. Always wanted to work in post-16 training and development. So therefore, once I'd finished college, that was what I went into. And really, my main aspiration was to be a trainer and a teacher, which I did for quite a few years. But then gradually, as life changes, you kind of, you know, start applying, don't you, for promotion. I can't say back when I started out, and I'm sure this is the same for, you know, a lot of the young people these days, you don't sit there saying, oh, I want to be a CEO one day at all. And I have to be honest, as I've kind of worked for large national training providers, I started off back in the days of YTS on the west coast of Scotland, actually, working for a training provider there back in the days of YTS. And I thoroughly enjoyed it and, you know, really wanted to do that. But, you know, you apply for promotion, you work for bigger and bigger organisations, and then gradually through different organisations and roles, I moved into very much dedicated roles in quality and curriculum development and compliance. Eventually, you kind of find a niche for yourself, don't you, as you work in different job roles and different organisations. And then I made the decision a few years ago, about 5 years ago now, that after working on the training side for years, I'd like to move into something slightly different and wanted to look at what I call working on the other side of the fence in terms of how you view things. And moving towards the awarding organisations where I'd always contracted with them as the, you know, director of quality and curriculum I was then. I wanted to move to that other side and get the other perspective, and went off doing one role for a year or so, and then was contacted to come and take on the role as a stand-in interim CEO for Occupational Awards Limited, because at the time they were reviewing what they wanted to do in terms of their next steps, having set the company up. It'd been going about three years or so by then. But within 4 months, they asked me to be permanent. I decided I would give it a go and see how it was. I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it for the last 3 years. It's been great.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Fantastic. So I guess you've had a few challenges over time. What would you say some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome?
Well, there's nothing like taking on being CEO of an organisation that is still in its development stage. Yeah. At the time, we did all our endpoint assessments face-to-face. And 2 months in, you go into a pandemic where nobody's allowed to do anything face-to-face. Okay. So, you know, I kind of sat in my office at home for a couple of days and thought, what are we going to do about this? And I have to be honest, back then, never even heard of Zoom. Yeah, we didn't even use it. We did some telephone conferencing and things like that. So basically, through April and May of the first lockdown, we had to completely change everything we did and our delivery models. Yes. You know, we could have gone one way and sent everybody on furlough, or what we had decided to do, and you know, I had to tell the staff this, we're not furloughing anybody, we're going to spend the time investing what we have in changing our model and looking at how we can adapt the endpoint assessments and work with the Education Skills Funding Agency, the Institute for Apprenticeships, our employers, the whole shebang really. So we did get into Zoom quite quickly. One of my staff said, I found this is what we can do. And we just spent those first 2 or 3 months working out how we could do everything completely differently. And then we've spent the last 2 years investing in a series of online platforms, changing all our IT and security systems, so that in the end, by midway through the first lockdown, we were delivering all of our assessments remotely. And now, over 2 years later, we've got a very flexible hybrid model where we do some things face-to-face. Now things have relaxed, but we still do a lot remotely because the world has moved on, hasn't it? Yes. And they were completely making sure the wheels stayed on the bus. And we carry on working and carry on supporting the apprentices and our customers was central to what we did. And we furloughed no one and carried on doing that. And in actual fact, that's helped us increase our turnover 50%. Wowzers, well done. So 50% growth in through lockdown. That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable, really, because there was such a lot to do anyway to change the business model and invest in the IT. We needed to, you know, make our surplus to do that. And we were able to change it. My team were fantastic. We're only a very small company. We don't have a massive staff team. Quite a lot of our systems and processes are outsourced. But they worked with us and supported us on that. And my team were just fantastic in the way that they worked tirelessly to continue supporting apprentices and our customers to ensure we'd got the right solutions in place. And I think the fact that we kept going and we came up with those solutions and we embraced the change and embraced the technology and embraced the new way of working. No, none of my team want to ever go back to working in the office 5 days a week. You know, we've got a very hybrid model now in place with that, and changed all our HR systems and all our contracting. So to be honest, you know, the world of education is a world of change anyway. But we've really, you know, had to embrace change massively for the last 2.5 years. And I don't think there's any going back now. And lots of positives as well as negatives have come out of that change.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the biggest things you've learned over that sort of period?
That if you involve the team and give them the ownership and you know, I like to work like that anyway, but give them the support, do the, you know, the discussions with them, but allow them to think and build and support with the solutions and lead on the change. Then, you know, you're always going to have some resistance. That's normal. But the more you give that over to them and allow them and enable them, you know, with support, to take things forward, then that can make such a difference to a business.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's very much the philosophy of Sir Clive Woodward, the rugby England rugby coach. That's definitely his empowerment of his team to make decisions. Ultimately, as leaders, he allowed himself to have a veto if he thought that the idea was totally crazy. But other than that, he said, "This, you know, you're the guys that need to implement it. So you decide what's, you know, what the best way to achieve that goal is."
Absolutely. And the other thing is that, you know, I'm quite keen on sayings and little examples from different leadership people. And I remember that one of my line managers quite a few years ago now always had a picture of a rowing boat on the wall in his office. And the saying underneath said, "What will make the boat go faster?" And I can't remember, I think he might have been somebody who used to coach Steve Redgrave or something like that, but I can't remember where it came from. But apparently everybody, you know, in the boat, in rowing, can row really fast and everything, and they can be giving their all, but the boat isn't going any faster, and they can be working really hard, can't they? And you know, I like to use analogies like that to say, you know, with the team, I know everybody's working really hard, and everybody's doing what they can. However, sometimes you're not always aligned, you're not always rowing in the same direction. You might not actually all be in the same boat. You know, I have had some teams where there's no doubt everybody is working really hard. They aren't necessarily all in the same boat, and they aren't all rowing in the same direction. And therefore the boat isn't going any faster and isn't going in the direction it needs to be going in. So very much I like to use the analogy about, right, okay, first of all, let's make sure we're all in the same boat. Let's make sure we're all wanting to row in the same direction. Do we all understand what it is we're trying to do, where we're trying to get to, and what actually that end goal will look like? How will we know we've got there? How will we know if the boat is going faster? So we kind of, you know, quite a lot during lockdown, we did short snippet, half an hour Zoom meetings every day, just as a check-in for people's well-being, just to make sure everybody was, you know, still happy and healthy and coping. I encouraged everybody to do workouts if they wanted to and go for walks and things like that, but also to keep saying, where are we getting to today? What are we doing? How is it going? What's going well? What isn't going well? And how can we make sure we're going in the right direction? You know, and that is my philosophy. Make sure that you understand your strategy as a leader, but most of all, ensure that your team understands that strategy, have signed up to it, and know what part they play in it and what impact what they're doing will have on other teams and the wider organisation.
Brilliant. Love it. I think it's bang on, and I think the boat analogy is quite useful with regard to things like boats have anchors as well that can hold them back, and it's what do we need to let go of as well as what do we need to embrace, and I guess very true over the significant change period that we've had.
Yes.
What do I need to let go of, and move forward? So you're probably we're a coaching organisation. We've talked a little bit about that, but who would you say is the best coach you've ever had, and why?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, because I once was a manager on the National Teaching and Learning Coach programme.
Right.
For quite a few years, and my line manager with that, and I did a master's certificate in coaching whilst we ran that programme nationally as part of an initiative with the DFE. And Jan Portillo, who was the regional director for the North East, was my line manager at the time, and she was a fabulous coach. Great advocate of coaching, and she supported me and all the team under her to have coaching support ourselves, and lots of training on coaching and development. And I would definitely say doing that, and she supported anybody who wanted to do the qualification as well, had a big impact on changing my management and leadership approach. And I've used that ever since, and it's getting on for probably 17, 18 years ago now that we started doing it. Completely changed my approach to how I support staff, coach staff myself. In fact, one of my staff, I don't mention coaching to them. It's just the way you use the different models in coaching to have discussions and support with people, isn't it? And one of my staff at his performance development review a few months ago said, "I do like the way you coach me without me knowing about it." And I thought, well, that says it all, really, doesn't it? But yes, she was great in terms of supporting. And I find that in terms of line managers, it's always the ones who are able to support you and get you to think about what you're doing and find the solutions yourself, as well as giving some advice, but also who are able to give you the feedback you need to carry on improving, to understand yourself more and what you might need to think about in terms of improving on. I find that line managers who gloss over all of that and only talk about what you're doing really well don't help you build and shape and improve yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think being open and honest with each other is really a real key part of it, of an effective coaching relationship. And I think going back to your point earlier, a great phrase I picked up in that's relevant to coaching is that the truth comes out of the other person's mouth. And you know, if I say something's my truth, but if you say it, it's your truth. And if I can coach people to find their truth, and as you said, empower the team to come up with the ideas, and then it's their truth, it's their plan, and it's their deliverable, and we create a lot of ownership that way. So that's wonderful. And you mentioned a sort of sayings and analogies. Do you have any other? I'm really keen to pick up any quotes that you fall back on a regular basis when in either good times or bad times.
Yeah, well, the one I'm renowned for is talking about things being a dog's breakfast. And have we got a Mexican standoff on this? I want to explain to a team what that meant and how we moved away from having a Mexican standoff. I've always liked the Winston Churchill saying that says, if you're going through hell, you've got no option other than to keep on going.
Absolutely.
But also, you know, you've got to look at the positives, haven't you? And you know, from small acorns, great oak trees grow. And I've used that analogy with the team at OAL. You know, this is where we are. This is how we need to grow. You know, and think about us as a tree growing and developing as we move forward year on year. And what does that new tree need to look like? And therefore building our strategy out from as the branches grow and how we can develop that with the team moving forward.
Lovely. No, I love that. Yeah, no, absolutely. Another great analogy to use in how we lead our team. So what do you say you've learned about yourself as you've gone through this journey?
Definitely over the last couple of years that I'm more innovative than I thought I was. I've always thought I had ideas, but didn't, you know, yeah, definitely that you can lead and manage teams effectively remotely.
Yes.
And hold effective meetings remotely. I've learned that I can be far more concise if I'm made to be, because if you do 3 hours on a Zoom, it's very, very, very hard work. We've learned that we don't need a full day for a lot of meetings these days, so yes. An hour Zoom will definitely suffice. But also that I do love a challenge. Far more than I've always liked challenging roles, but I really like a challenge, and I really like to think and work with teams on solutions and taking things in a new direction. You know, so I've probably had the most enjoyable 2 years of my working life through what most people will describe as one of the worst times in our history. So, you know, in my lifetime, I mean, you know, other than the World War. So, you know, it's been to learn that you can do all of that has been very uplifting, I think, for myself and the majority of people in my team who have learned that they can cope and manage lots of different things in a completely different way than they would have thought possible 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, wonderful. Must be great to look back at that and how far you've come in that period, and that's a wonderful thing to look back on. And looking forward, I guess. What does the future look like for yourself at OAL, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think the future moving forward is for us to carry on developing and growing. We're going to apply for more standards. A lot of the employers have now made requests for other apprenticeship occupations for us to work on. We're looking at what we can do in developing more of our qualification portfolio. And we're expanding the business out internationally a little bit. We've had some inquiries internationally, but whereby some of those companies abroad would have wanted you to be tripping off on a plane to see them, they're more than happy now to have you know, Teams meetings and Zooms with you. So that makes that much more workable for us as a small organization. So we've started doing a little bit with the enquiries we've had in that area. We're continuing to grow the team this year slowly as we expand our portfolio and our products. We don't want to get too big. We don't want to get too far away from our roots, but we do recognize the need to diversify. We're going to be taking forward our hybrid model of a mix of face-to-face and remote, depending on the apprentice and the customer needs over the next couple of years. The challenges are going to be to ensure we can do all of that in a cost-effective way, that we still, you know, apprenticeship recruitment was severely hit during the pandemic. Our providers are telling us that they've lost over 30% of the apprentices they had on programme pre-pandemic because of dropout, inability to retain on programs. A lot of them were furloughed. That a lot were made redundant. The changing face of the economy is also impacting on apprenticeships. You know, for example, retail went very much online unless you were in shops. So the retail sector is declining, other than in a number of key areas. Food and drink were severely hit because of the pandemic being something they needed to doubly lock down. So you couldn't go in. You couldn't go in the factories. That their rules for health and safety kind of doubled, and
of course.
There's some relaxation, but that's going to take probably another couple of years yet, especially as COVID-19 is still, the number of cases on the rise, isn't it? It's not going away. No. So all of those challenges, along with increased costs, with the changes in employers' NI and travel costs and things like that, there's a lot of challenges there with ensuring you can maintain and stabilize the business through what I think will still be another couple of challenging years.
Yes, that makes sense. Goodness, well, it looks like it's certainly going to be exciting anyway. I'm sure it's in the way you look forward. So just a few interesting questions just to perhaps close. What would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think you've got to look at ensuring you've got a long-term sustainable model. And, people don't always pay enough attention to their cash flow, and ensuring that, there's a lot of outlay and the cash coming in is just feeding back into what you've already spent. So actually making any kind of surplus or profit in the first year is a real challenge. And I think people don't always look at their numbers enough where that's concerned, and also where the niche parts of their marketplace is, in order to ensure they're meeting a need, not just had a great idea, but then not realize there's thousands of other people out there doing a similar thing. So you've got to really analyze the marketplace and ensure that your financial projections will allow you to have the right cash flow.
Brilliant. I think very wise words. It's as we always say, I think there's a phrase I picked up many years ago, which I like, which was, I think, turnover for vanity, profits for sanity, but cash is always king.
Yes.
And, I think that makes it's proven to be a very, very sound advice over a very long period of time.
Well, you sound like my chairman of the board. Cash is king is the one he said to me from day one, and that's what we've kept in mind.
It's so interesting how we can, so how profit and cash can diverge quite significantly over over periods of time. And as I say, there's been some amazingly profitable businesses that have still floundered because of the inability to collect the right collect cash at the right point.
Absolutely. And that has been one of our ongoing discussions, and the need to be flexible. As a business, you've got to make sure you've always got that eye on the horizon about how do I need to change and flex this business to ensure it can still carry on moving forward. It's meeting customer needs, and it's able to flex very quickly, not take ages. You can't be the Titanic trying to turn from the iceberg. You've got to make sure you know where the iceberg is and that you're steering a different course, and you're able to do that quite quickly.
Yeah, brilliant. No, completely agree. And if you were to start again, is there anything you'd do differently?
I don't know, really. Probably recruit a couple of extra staff earlier than I did. for this particular business. If you know, I wish I'd moved to working for an awarding organisation earlier than I did, because I've enjoyed it so much.
Great. Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, fantastic. And finally, just a bit of fun. What's the best advice you could give to an 18-year-old you, if you could?
Believe in yourself more and have more confidence, because you can do it.
Brilliant. Absolutely. One of my favourite quotes is the Henry Ford quote, which is whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I think that's helped me a lot over various times. And yeah, that positive attitude to things is and having that confidence that we can is really valuable. And I can see from the way you talk and the way our discussions that you're embedding that in the people that work around you, which is wonderful. Which is a wonderful thing to do.
Thank you.
So, Jan, it's been really delightful. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're really busy. So thanks so much for taking part today. Is there any final thoughts you have before we wrap up?
No, I think I've said what I need to say. Thanks, Chris. Just like to thank you for asking me to do this. It's been very enjoyable. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully maybe we can come back in a year's time or so and see how much further OAL have got.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.